All right, hello, and welcome back to the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee. Joined at this time, my good friend down there in Dacula, Georgia, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matthew Green himself, Matthew W. Green. Some call him Matt _W _Green. Sir, how are you?
Some people do call me that. I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. The Braves tied for first in the NL East as they come roaring back.
But I think by the end of the day, I think the Mets are back half game in front because they had a doubleheader today. So, yeah, I got 2 wins on us. But, you know, division is far from over.
Hey, this is good baseball, though, right? Like, this is what you want down the stretch, where every game matters and whichever way it goes can influence who gets to host a divisional round, who has to be an immediate wild card and all that kind of stuff. So very, very excited to see how that ultimately unfolds. But it's the best time of year, man. I did my walk with Khaleesi the dog and the fiance this evening, and Macarene. Like, I love flannels. I'm a big flannel guy. I love coffee. I love hot tea. I've got my hot tea right here. It's lemon ginger. It's one of my go-tos. Love ginger tea. It's a good one. I do a green tea in the afternoon. I do a gray tea, mixing and matching with my coffee. But it hits different when it's a little bit cooler outside. And on our walk there, the leaves were falling. I just kind of wanted. I'm a big soundtrack guy, so I wanted to kind of. It took a lot for me not to just have the Hocus Pocus soundtrack playing during our walk and Hocus Pocus.
You a big Halloween guy?
Oh, love Halloween, love Christmas. Those are the two. But like October,
we didn't get any trick or treaters last year, so we're probably not going to buy any more candy.
You still got to do it just in case. They might come back this year. I don't know. It's getting more. We're getting back to normal. I feel like it's going to be better this year than it was a year ago. I would estimate. I would also say, Matt Green, that, look, October is undoubtedly the #1 month of the year. If we could get more Octobers, the world would be a happier place. Like, that's just perfect weather, perfect views, perfect looks. I'm a big mountain guy. The mountains are my favorite. And, man, it just felt so nice. I could have thrown on a flannel, and I would have just been nice and cozy and just domestic bliss. Is all I'm looking for, man.
I'll have to agree with you on October. That probably is the prime month, especially with the last few years. Braves playing baseball deep into October, overlapping with football season and the best weather of the year. I'm all with you on October.
I mean, this
for those on the podcast rocking my World Series champion shirt, no big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see it. As we do some housekeeping here to get things started on this edition of the program. Matt Green, you can check us out on YouTube, full episodes, all that good stuff, clips over on the YouTube page, youtube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast. Like and subscribe and check us out there. That is updated daily. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But if you are an Apple Podcast or Spotify listener, please make sure that you take 5 seconds. It just takes 5 seconds to leave this show a 5-star rating and a review on either of those platforms. It helps other people find the show, and it helps this very show continue to grow. You can find Matt on Twitter and all of his CFB takes as he goes at it on twitter.com with other folks at Matt_W_Green. Matt's about it. He's about it, and I'm more of a lurker and just post my stuff and then move on for the day and keep up with the news and all that good stuff. But you can find me at Chase_Thomas. You can also write the show. Love to hear from you guys with any of your college football takes or anything you want to get in touch with Matt or myself. ChaseThomasPodcast@gmail.com. And of course, as always, full episodes and all the kind of content and information about this very show. If you're new to the program, ChaseThomasPodcast.com. So check that out today as well. Matt Green, Nigel the Nighthawk, as two UNG alums, we love this segment to kick things off during football season. We've got the Nigel the Nighthawk News Hour. Not the most pleasant news to start off here because Guy Morris passed away this week at age 71, coaching legend, and I thought the best way to talk about his impact in college football and everything else. He coached a lot of different stops from Texas, coached Kentucky, among other places. But it's the look. He will always have that still image for me, Matt Green, where he's looking off. Do you know what I'm talking about? The Guy Morris surprise face is etched in my brain
When I think
forever.
of Guy Morris, obviously R.I.P., but I definitely think of the premature Gatorade bath.
Yes.
And that LSU miracle in the bluegrass, I believe is what we call that great moment in college football history. Yeah, Kentucky thought they had the upset win, but LSU got the Hail Mary at the end. Real unfortunate. I feel like as a head coach, that's probably why he's so pissed off in the moment. It's like, guys, game's not over. What the hell? And then that to happen, just the ultimate. That was one of the all-timers, honestly, as far as college football moments. Just all the different faces of all the Kentucky fans that rushed the field, just running out there and then seeing LSU players celebrate like, wait, what? We lost? Like that was a classic.
He was only there for 1 year. I didn't realize 2 years, excuse me. And he went from 2-9 to 7-5 in his 2 years at Kentucky. Then he went to Baylor for 5 years. Never got them to bowl eligibility, but great NFL career. Played from 1973 to 1987 with the Eagles and the Patriots as a center and a guard. Bounced around in the coaching ranks. Was at Valdosta at one point. Coached from 1988 with the Patriots, the O-line coach, to all the way up until 2015 as the Lexington Christian Academy offensive line coach. But he coached everywhere: Texas A&M Commerce, Warren Central High School, Mississippi State, San Antonio Texans, like just everywhere. Just a coaching and football lifer, and had a great impact on the game. So R.I.P. Guy Morris. Sam Hartman, who we were wondering after the mysterious illness that sidelined him for the foreseeable future. There was no timeline on when Sam would be returning under center for the Demon Deacons. They survived and really looked pretty solid without him in week 1 for the Clawfence down there in Winston-Salem. But he's back this week. So he's cleared earlier than I think a lot of people had perhaps anticipated. But what do you make of the women in our lives' favorite quarterback returning to the fold?
I swear, this is only your favorite quarterback. I don't even know what you're talking about. But I think this is massive. I think when we both went through the Wake Forest over/under win totals, we're just like, well, I have no idea now, because if this team doesn't have Sam Hartman, it's like, yeah, they could win 3-4 games and not be surprised, But this definitely makes Wake Forest an instant contender. I mean, this is a team that won the ACC Atlantic division. Yes, that's correct. They won the Atlantic last year. Like, they were in the ACC championship. So this is huge. And they only had to play. They're 1-0. Went 1-0 without their starter, and now he's back. I feel like the sky is the limit. Like, whatever the previous limit was for Wake Forest, the previous ceiling was for Wake Forest, like, that's where they're back to. Like, and they got Vanderbilt this week. Like, that low key became like kind of an exciting game now.
They needed him right away. So it's funny when you look at this schedule, man. Like, this is suddenly like a really rough go of things. So I'm going to be very fascinated to see how this goes for Wake Forest over the next couple weeks, because they don't really have any cupcakes. Like, they're going to be in a dogfight for a while. Like, we're looking at maybe November is the first break, and it's not even really a break because you get UNC and NC State back to back. But it's rough as a whole, because look, they go on the road at Vanderbilt. It's 2-0, an improved Vanderbilt. That we'll see how that goes. I don't know. I think that's a toss-up at this point. I would not etch that in stone as like, yeah, Wake Forest should be the favorite. Road game, SEC team. We'll see which way that goes. Liberty, Charlie Brewer, hurt again. He's out for the foreseeable future. We'll see what happens there with Liberty going to Wake Forest. But it's a good team. Hugh Freeze's group coming in as an out-of-conference kind of one of those spots where Tennessee has Akron. They bring in Caden Salter, old friend from University of Tennessee legend. Caden Salter will be under center for the Flames in that one. But then you get Clemson at home on September 24th. You go on the road at Florida State, that looks like a significantly tougher game than it was previously. Then you get this weird Army matchup right in the middle of your schedule. So you're like, oh, crap, we got to play a triple option right after all of this, right in the middle of our season. And then at Louisville, at NC State, UNC at home. Syracuse looks a lot better this year after what we saw from week 1. I don't know. Wake's got a sneaky tough schedule, so they needed Sam Hartman back earlier than ever. So this is the best case scenario for them, and I'm just happy he's healthy enough to play again.
Yeah, without a doubt. We all know how that Army game went last year. Just an all-timer. But, they really don't have an easy spot on that schedule until maybe at Duke at the very end of the season. And believe it or not, they're a 12.5-point favorite this weekend versus Vanderbilt. That's kind of surprising me. But I think that should be a pretty close game. But, yeah, this is huge news for Wake Forest. So, one of the better teams potentially one of the better teams in the ACC now that they have their starting quarterback.
Absolutely. The AP poll for week 2 and the S&P Plus rankings both come out ahead of week 2 here in the college football season. I think it's interesting. I like comparing the two and looking at the two disparities between them, where S&P Plus, obviously from ESPN's Bill Connolly, who's just a fantastic college football writer and analyst, and his S&P Plus model is something I have looked at and just prioritized in my college football coverage for years, and highly encourage folks to do so and read Bill's work if they have not already done so. But you look at that and you compare it with the AP poll and what people are seeing there, and there are some disparities. One of the major ones is Tennessee. Tennessee coming in at 8 on the S&P Plus poll. S&P Plus rankings, they have a 22. For context, the number 1 team is the Alabama Crimson Tide, 37.6. Georgia, number 2, 35. And those are distant first and second numbers for Bama and Georgia. And that's the same in the AP. Those are both the same 1, 2, 3, where you just get Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. Michigan, though, number 4 in both as well, which I thought was fascinating. S&P Plus, though, Texas A&M number 5, number 6 for the AP poll, which surprised me. I thought A&M would be further down the list in the AP poll after what they saw early on, but they didn't really drop that much. The biggest one is A&M or Tennessee and Wisconsin, and where folks see them.
Yeah, but now I see why you're liking this S&P Plus poll.
It's one of the
or
Josh
ranking,
Pate,
I should say.
Josh Pate also has, I think, Tennessee in the top 12 in his poll ahead of week 2, the Pate poll, Pate Power Rankings, whatever he calls it on Late Kick. He has Tennessee pretty high. I don't know. It is fascinating that the AP poll also has Florida at 12, Utah at 13. I think Oklahoma State at 11 feels high in the AP poll. They're 25th in the S&P poll. For, I keep saying poll, S&P Plus rankings, which is a big difference between the two. But I don't know. When you look at both, what jumps out the most to you, Matt Green?
Well, the first thing that jumps out when I look at the AP poll is definitely Florida. Like, that was kind of out of nowhere. It's interesting how, I don't know, there's just the kind of a paradoxical logic when it comes to making the AP poll, because like sometimes you really care about that preseason number you put by somebody, and sometimes you just throw it out completely in week 1. So it's interesting that, Utah's preseason 7, and they lose to an unranked team essentially, right? But we've decided, no, Utah's really good. Florida's just really good. So that's why Florida's up at 12 and Utah's still at 13. Whereas Oregon's at 11, right, and gets absolutely dismantled by number 2 Georgia, and it's like, well, they're clearly not top 25. Get these guys out of here. They're pretenders. It's like, well, maybe they're just the 15th best team, and they just got absolutely dismantled by number 2. So it's interesting when they when you want to throw out the preseason ranking and when you want to find it important. But NC State, I thought, was a team that, despite being 1-0, needed to drop. They didn't look very good. Notre Dame, I think, that made sense, them getting respect with a respectable loss and only dropping a couple spots. Even though, we talk about this, it's just how the polls are supposed to work. You lose and you drop. But it's like if number 5 loses to number 3 by, what was it, ended up being 14.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, that's probably about the difference between number 5 and number 3, 2 touchdowns. So, but yeah, so I didn't really have many problems with it. The S&P Plus is the one that stood out to me, though, like you're talking about with Tennessee up there at 8 and Wisconsin at 9. I thought those were 2 interesting ones right there. But Clemson at 7, like, I don't know, 41-10 is the final score of that game. I think everyone watching that game, like, we saw what we saw, right? Like, that might be the final score, but you messed around with a Georgia Tech team for far too long. Just an inferior – and I mean, at one point and they blocked 2 punts. Like, at one point it was – what was it, like 24-10 or something? And they had 2 10-yard fields after the blocked punts. So that offense – just looked, absolutely no better this year under DJ Uiagalelei than it did last year. It's hard to be encouraged, especially with, I'm not going to fall in love with Cade Klubnik because of what he did in garbage time, but I feel like you still feel the exact same way about DJ that you did coming into the season.
Yeah, it's just the defense. Like, the defense is as good as advertised. Goodwin's going to be a great DC, and they're going to be fine without Venables in that defense. Like, they're going to be fine. It's just the offense. Like you said, DJ is still not the intermediate kind of guy. He's still the big boom threat, and, I mean, he had some good runs in this one. He had some fun celebrating, staring down some Tech players as he danced into the end zone at one point in this one. But, I mean, Tech, that was rough, man. Like, this is it. Like, there was no doubt now that this is it for Jeff Collins on the flats this fall, I think. I think they did one of the worst 4th down calls in this one where the dude just falls down on the jet sweep in their own territory. I think they were down 2 scores at that point. It might have been 24-10. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about, but one of the more just sad trombone moments for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets where it's just not going to work. None of this is going to work. And Jeff Sims was okay in this one. He was fine.
Yeah, I honestly thought Jeff Sims was running around making some plays. Like, I mean, Georgia. You just looked at that Georgia Tech roster. Like, just the players they had on the field. It's like these don't look like ACC players. Like, they just. It feels like they're playing with a hand behind their back. Like, that just. It wasn't even a fair fight, and still Clemson was just messing around and wasn't pulling away. It was like. I think I heard Joe Hamilton talking about it on the radio on 680. It's like it looked like Georgia Tech knew what was coming. Like, Clemson's offense was just so predictable. Like, it was just – and eventually they just had better players, so they started to, wear them down. But I don't know. I was just very unimpressed by Clemson, and I'm sure Dabo will get mad about little old Clemson winning and getting dropped in the rankings, but – They did not look very good for most of that Georgia Tech game.
The last big disparity between the two I want to mention before we move on, Mississippi State number 12 in S&P Plus, and they are not in the top 25 for the AP poll. So big disparity between what the numbers see with Mississippi State and what voters, human beings, see with Mississippi State.
Yeah, that is. Especially there's 8 SEC teams in the top 25 right now in the AP, which is I don't remember the last time there's ever been 8 SEC teams, and that's not going to last because they're going to start beating each other. But so it's interesting that Mississippi State isn't even one of those 8. Yeah,
I mean, for reference, you got Tennessee, you've got Ole Miss, Kentucky, Florida, you've got. Where else are we going? A&M, Georgia, and Bama, in Arkansas. Did I say Arkansas? But yeah, I don't know. I think the one thing that's just weird to me is that Florida's number 12. I just beating Utah, good win, grinded out win, but I think it goes back to like, well, what is Tennessee supposed to do, or Kentucky, or Ole Miss, or some of these other schools? So Florida just makes this huge jump up because I don't think they were ranked the previous week, but then they move up to number 12 in the AP poll this week because they survived Utah at home. But like some of these other teams, like Tennessee played a cupcake. Some of these other schools played cupcakes. But like, I think if you put them on a neutral site right now, or if you just do Florida, Tennessee this weekend, Tennessee's favored in that one. I think Ole Miss is probably favored against them. I even think Kentucky at home, they'd be favored. But right now, Florida is favored. We'll get into the Florida-Kentucky game this weekend. But I thought Florida moving up to number 12 is too high. I think people have now overhyped what Florida is going to be this year based on that win.
Especially because, I mean, you watch the game, and I wouldn't take anything away from Florida. I would say it's one of the biggest wins of the weekend. Like, you know, in terms of Georgia probably having the most impressive win, destroying Oregon the way they did. Like, or Florida, first game of the new head coach, upsetting a top 10 team. That's probably the second most impressive win of the entire first weekend. But when you watch the game, did you think did you think this felt like a heavyweight match, that like these are two of the best teams in college football going up against each other? It felt like it was a higher level of play than like LSU, Florida State, right? But it felt more kind of like, yeah, these are two solid teams. Like I wouldn't just overreact, and I would say probably we had Utah a little overrated, and we probably had Florida a little underrated maybe coming into the season, but to have Florida jump all the way from unranked to 12, like I still think, you know, we'll learn about Kentucky, where Kentucky and Florida stand, and where Tennessee and Florida stand in a few weeks. But it was interesting for them to jump all of those teams just for a pretty good win, because it was also at home. Like, we know the Swamp accounts for, you know, at least a solid three 7-point swings. So it wasn't a crazy spread or anything. So. I don't know. Not to take anything away from Florida, like I said, but it was surprising to see them go from unranked all the way to 12.
I am hyped for Kentucky, Florida this weekend. I am hyped for that one, man. That's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll get into that later on the show. But
not a lot of great like primetime games this weekend either. So I think that's the one. I think I'll be glued to that one. Like, what, 7 o'clock, 7:30?
Well, I've got a difficult spot to be in, man. You know how I feel about the BYU Cougs. They're at 10:15 against Baylor.
Oh yeah, that's way later. That's that's the nightcap.
But that's not even my favorite nightcap. You got 11 p.m. East Coast time, Arizona, hosting the Mississippi State Bulldogs. That is going to be an absolute banger of a game, and I have a hunch of where Zeus's home dog of the week is going to go this week. But I don't know. Yeah, outside of that, I mean, Arizona State, Oklahoma State doesn't really do it for me. I think Stanford, USC, like, we'll get into that on our preview picks and stuff. But like you said, I think it will not be it's not the greatest nightcap slate, but I'm okay with that because Florida and UK are on at 7, which will have my attention at that particular time.
And we got some good noon ones, and I'll have to sprinkle in a little Georgia Samford at some point while keeping up with Tennessee Pitt. So yeah, should be a good one.
I think one might be a little bit closer than the other on that front. But
Samford put out like a graphic, like the bigger they are, like ... Like, yeah, I respect it. I think they beat Florida. Or no, they didn't beat Florida a couple years ago. It was like 56-49 or something like that. I think last year. I think
real
Florida
ones though. Let's just go ahead and say too at the top of the show. Don't watch Alabama, Texas. If you're a fan, tune in at noon. Like, tune in if you're a fan of one of those schools. I would never discourage you from watching your team. There are better games on at noon. Like, Arkansas, South Carolina is going to be a banger on ESPN at noon. I think Kansas State, Mizzou is going to be a banger. They don't have that same kind of appeal nationally. Like, it doesn't pop for you.
From Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt's #1 fan, you're telling them not to watch Big Noon Saturday?
I think it's just going to be over in the first quarter, Matt. I can't.
No, it's possible.
I don't think it's going to be a great game. I really don't. I think Texas is 3 TD dog as of right now. Is that right? Where are they at?
I think it's 20 right now.
Yeah, so 3 touchdown dog. I just I don't see it on that one, but we'll get into that game as well. One final thing from our old friend Nigel the Nighthawk. I'm gonna get a sound when we get the soundboard and everything kicked in with this. I'm gonna get a Nighthawk here on the program. We need a Nigel song. Maybe I'll reach out to friends of our alma mater and see if they can send us a fight song sound for Mr. Nigel. But one final big news drop today. Pat McAfee, who has the Pat McAfee Show, former punter of the Indianapolis Colts, current WWE SmackDown Live commentator on Friday nights, will not be doing that this fall. He's taking a leave to jump to College Game Day full time. He's had Kirk Herbstreit on a lot, his show. I'll see like clips of that, and he's on a lot, and you can tell that they're very cool. But you know, there was a push back in the day, like, you know, the Mannings love him. That's part of it. He's going to be on the Manning cast on Monday nights for ESPN for that, I think, a couple times this fall. He is fun. Like, McAfee is just energetic. He is funny. He is someone that draws you in. He is genuinely excited about the product, and he is someone that you want. Like, he is exactly what Lee Corso is to Game Day. Just the jovial, happy-go-lucky, I mean, just happy to be there, and he's all about having a good time. And if you were looking for the next Lee Corso, we've talked about, like, which coach makes the most sense, and people would throw Saban as, like, he wants to do media, he's a natural fit. But Saban doesn't have, like, the Lee Corso, I'm going to put on whatever mascot. No. Like, Saban's not doing that. Do you know who's doing that? It's Pat McAfee, the former West Virginia legend, Pat McAfee. I think this is a home run. I think this is really, really good for College Game Day. I think he's going to be fun. I think the chemistry is there with him and Herbie and company. I think he's going to make Reese Davis sweat a little bit and make him loosen up a little bit on the program. But I don't know, man. I think this is a nice jolt, and I would guess he's the long-term replacement if all goes well for Lee Corso, and we get Herbie and McAfee as the two main duo, I guess, with Desmond Howard too, with Reese Davis. But what do you make of McAfee joining College Game Day full time, starting Saturday, by the way?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Corso thing, because that's exactly where that was the first place my mind went to this. Because for them to do it week 2 of the season, like, with all due respect to Lee Corso, legend, he like made College Game Day what it was. I think we all were watching College Game Day last week and, like, come on, let's do this guy solid. Let's let him be a part of this broadcast, but let's not put too much on his plate, right? Mm-hmm. So I think definitely what you're right, because he's the college game day and everything always has such energy, and Pat McAfee, obviously we've seen him part of it before, so he feels like a perfect fit for just the whole vibe they're going for. So yeah, I think it's an awesome move.
He's gonna be fun. He's gonna interact with the fans. He's gonna interact with College Game Day. It also makes me feel a little bit better about, like, because this was a concern when ESPN is just all in on the SEC, right? Where Big Ten will not be on ESPN very soon. So you're like, oh, where's Game Day gonna go? Are they gonna stay away from Big Ten locations because they will not be broadcasting any of their games? But the fact that it's Herbie, Ohio State guy, McAfee, West Virginia guy, Desmond Howard, Michigan guy.
Yeah.
I don't see it going that way. I think this is enough to make me think they're going to go wherever the best games are. I don't think that's going to be swayed with this group.
Yeah, and I hope not. I think they've gone to enough games to this point that weren't necessarily the ESPN or ABC telecast that night. So, yeah, I trust they'll keep going to just trying to, keep it fresh and not go to the same schools over and over, but also want to go to the most rowdy atmospheres they can.
Absolutely. Matt Green, before we get into our picks for week 2, it is time for week 2 here on our preview series here on the Full Ride on the Chase Moss Podcast presented by Blue Wire Pods. Would you like to remind the good folks where we stand heading into week 2, Matt Green, on our picks?
Yes, sir. It's a good start to the season for Chase Thomas. So so far you are 8-4-2 against the spread and 13-1 overall.
Okay.
And your boy over here is 7-5-2 against the spread. Just a game behind you against the spread, but 8-6 overall, and just picking winners. So not too hot of a start for the season for me. So I'm hoping to bounce back here in week 2. And also Zeus is 0-1 with his slight loss with Purdue last week.
But he's close. Zeus will bounce back. Matt Green, where are we going first?
Well, first, you hyped it up. to be such a great game. You know, it's game of the week. College Game Day site. This is where College Game Day is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so this is a Fox game. So there you go. Right out of the gate. We got number 1 Alabama going to Austin, Texas to play the Longhorns, and Texas is a 20-point dog. It's like I want this to be the home dog, right? I want to believe that Texas is going to give Alabama a game, and I think they will give them a game for 2 quarters. Because I don't think this Alabama offense is quite as elite as they've been the last couple years. I think the level of receiver play is not just no doubt first round talent like it has been. And kind of the same for the backfield. Like, obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs could have a huge season, but not that Derrick Henry, Najee Harris level we've kind of become accustomed to with Alabama. So I feel like I just don't think this is an immortal type of Alabama team that's going to be up 28-0 first quarter, game over. But I feel like just Quinn Ewers, second start of his entire career coming against Alabama, like I just have a feeling Nick Saban is going to give him a lot of things he's never seen before. And this Alabama team, I just have a feeling it's going to get ugly in the second half. So I think they can play with them for a quarter or two, but I like Alabama to win pretty big. Take Alabama and the points.
Interesting. I agree. Right out of the gate here, I think Alabama wins and covers. The score for me that feels the closest is Alabama 49, Texas 17. I think this is blowout city where it might be the first quarter. They're in it. Bijan Robinson and Xavier Worthy, they pull off some big stuff, maybe some explosive plays a little bit early. But
they do have some playmakers.
They do. But they don't have an answer for Dallas Turner and Will Anderson on the edge. I don't trust Texas's offensive line to protect Quinn enough in this one. I also just don't think Texas's defense is there yet. This is going to be a problem because Alabama, true or false, Matt Green, they won 55-0 against the team that won the Mountain West Conference last season. Good team, coached by one of the league's best in Blake Anderson.
Are they better than Texas? Like, are they better than a mid Big 12 team?
Well, to be fair, Texas did lose to Kansas last year. This is a Texas team that is not even a year removed from losing to the Kansas Jayhawks.
No, that's fair. I don't know what Utah State returns from a conference champion from a year ago, but I obviously don't know much about the Aggies of Utah State, but other than their mascot.
But they were, like, you don't have to know enough to know that, like, hey, they won the Mountain West, good conference last year. They were treated like they were North Dakota State Central against Alabama.
It's a respectable cupcake, I would say, yeah.
55-0 is preposterous. And then when you dive a little bit deeper and you see Bama didn't even score in the fourth. Like, if Bama wanted to beat Utah State 90-0, I think that was in play last week.
I mean, that's probably true, but I don't feel like you can even learn that much from games like that. Like, yeah, Alabama, there's so many teams that are superior, just talent level, to Utah State. Like, I think, LSU probably would have beaten the brakes off of Utah State. Like, I think there's just a lot of, SEC teams that would just beat an inferior level of talent like that. But, I mean, not to take anything away from Alabama. They're obviously a great team. I don't know how many conclusions you can really draw from just murdering a Mountain West team,
That's fair. All that being said, this is still just feels like to me a Alabama blowout here, and I think Texas is just not there. Is Arch going to be in the building for this one? You don't want Arch there. You don't want any big recruits if you're Texas.
Oh, dude, you know it. This has got to be the biggest recruiting weekend of the entire season. Like, other than the fact that it's a noon kickoff, that's not. Although I've heard for recruiting visits that can kind of be better because you got the game early and then you got the whole rest of the day to wine and dine them, if you will. But if your team loses 49-10, I don't know if it's the best experience the rest of the day. Who knows? But it's going to be a great atmosphere for at least 15 minutes or so.
For sure.
But Alabama, we'll lock it in.
I want this to be a good game, but I don't know. Texas last week gave up 4.05 yards per play, and not the best. Good for around 40th, I think, and per CFB stats right now. So not the best there. I think you can do stuff against this Texas defense, and I think Bama's going to have their way. Where are we going next, Matt Green?
Next one, we got the South Carolina Gamecocks going to Arkansas. And Arkansas is an 8.5-point home favorite. And I went back and forth on this one for a while just because I really like Arkansas this year. But I don't feel like they're going to win a lot of games big. I feel like I see Arkansas maybe going 9-3, maybe like 10-2 or something. But winning a lot of games by 4, by 7, like just, they just seem like the kind of team that's not going to blow a lot of people out, right? And I don't want to overreact to South Carolina, Georgia State last week. Like, it was 35-14, but the 2 block punts for touchdowns, like this South Carolina offense did not look good, and Spencer Rattler did not look good. And more importantly, they gave up 40 carries for 200 yards on the ground. And Arkansas is going to pound it with a running quarterback as well as part of that rushing attack. And that's exactly what they're getting with Arkansas and KJ Jefferson. So I feel like that's just a much better version of what Georgia State was bringing to the table. So all due respect to the Thurs. So I started to take Arkansas to win, but not to cover. But the more I think about it, I don't feel like they can hang with Arkansas's physicality for 4 quarters. So I'm going to take Arkansas and the points.
We agree again. I'm taking Arkansas on the points. I think they win bigger than people expect in this one. Maybe like a 31-13 type game, something around there. South Carolina, the offensive line stinks. Like, that's going to be a problem all year. We saw that with the Thurs. They were able to have their way there and really push South Carolina around a little bit. And Spencer Rattler, it turns out, is still just not an elite college quarterback. He is South Carolina through the first week, 94th in yards per attempt, right there around Ball State, who got blown out by the Tennessee Volunteers on opening weekend. Indiana's right there. You got some Buffalo, some Georgia Tech action, some UConn right around there. It's not where you want to be right out of the gate if you're the Gamecocks. South Carolina, I'm just glad that these games are happening now because the South Carolina Kentucky stuff all off season. I am just glad the regular season's here for this because it needed to end. It need the optimism, the
talking season.
The talking season, man. Look, love the fans. Nothing against South Carolina fans, nothing against Kentucky fans. I just had my doubts. I had my doubts about both programs, especially South Carolina going into this year. And I think this is the first come to Jesus moment for the Shane Beamer and Spencer Rattler era here in year 2, where Arkansas is a really, really good program. They're elite on both sides of the ball. I think this is just a solid top 15 program. They're not one of the best in the country, but they're just solid everywhere. They are a complete football team that just doesn't quite have the talent to be an Alabama type, but they're that next tier. They're the perfect tier 2 SEC team, and I don't think they're going to lose a game like this. I think they're just too competent, and I think they're going to bully South Carolina in a similar way. I think they're going to be able to get after and get home at Spencer Rattler and make him very uncomfortable, especially at home. I think Arkansas wins and covers pretty comfortably in this one.
All right, put it on the board, and it's a rivalry rejuvenation of some sorts. The last 2 teams to join the SEC back in '92, they were their locked East and West rivals up until 2014 when we switched it up with Missouri and A&M. But now A&M is locked with South Carolina and Missouri with Arkansas. But so good to see these 2 teams play again. I feel like they always had some good games in the Houston Nutt Spurrier era there with McFadden. I remember McFadden having one just ridiculous game against South Carolina where he was playing Wildcat quarterback, just taking over. McFadden, one of the more underrated players of the generation, I feel like. He's an all-time great in my book.
I would be there for it. And this is also the debut of the Cock Commander.
That's not his name, right?
No, they called him... Is it Mr. What do they call him? It's like not.
What
Spur,
was his original name?
The Spur.
Was it General Spur or something like that?
Something Spur. Big Spur?
Big Spur, I think. That sounds right.
I think it was the Big Spur.
So I'm not even sure what the name they settled on was.
It's a new name. It's not the Cock Commander.
No, it's not the Cock Commander. Even though that's what the people wanted. I guess democracy is dying, you know.
It's Sir Big Spur was the original. The
That's
General is his new name.
I wonder if that's for the Panthers, what they were going for, if they were inspired, because he's Sir Purr.
Oh. Well, there's also, I think...
Because you've seen that Robbie Anderson video, right, where he's mic'd up. He's Sir Purr. That's what he's like, what's that bear doing? It's like, it's not a bear, it's the Panther. He's like, Sir Purr, that's what you call him? You call him that? Oh, that video was hilarious.
It's an all-timer. I have not seen that one in a long time, but that is a good one. Go check that out, folks. Robbie Anderson, Sir Purr. It's a good one. But I distracted you. Where are we going next, Matt?
We're going to Pittsburgh for your Tennessee Vols. Going on the road, and Pitt is a 6.5-point home dog. And I thought about it, sir. I thought about going the home dog here. This game feels... I feel like this game is going to be just like the Pittsburgh-West Virginia game, honestly. I feel like it's going to be just an exciting atmosphere. It might be tied with 3-4 minutes to go, just like West Virginia-Pittsburgh was. But I think Hendon Hooker and the gang and Cedric Tillman, that's his name?
That is his name.
I wasn't positive about the first name. I don't think he's going to drop the easy pass that the JT Daniels receiver dropped. And Tennessee leads that last second drive, and they win by a touchdown late. So I think this is going to be an amazing game. But I think Tennessee is going to have too much offense for Pitt in the end. So give me Tennessee to go on the road. Man, I do feel like they're gonna win. The 6.5 is what throws me off, but I'm gonna pick Tennessee. Not one of my more confident ones, but I do like confident. In terms of the 6.5, I just feel like this game's gonna be a great game. I think Pittsburgh. I was really impressed with how they got so much pressure on JT Daniels in the first game. I think I don't know how improved this Tennessee defense is, and I think that's a big question. But and just that atmosphere. I feel like I was questioning the Heinz Field, whatever they call it now, atmosphere until last week. I'm a believer now. Like after watching that West Virginia game, maybe they just got that hype for the backyard brawl. But it feels like Pitt has turned a leaf and has become like one of the more respectable programs in the ACC. So I think they're gonna be ready for that SEC bragging rights coming to town.
Interesting. I don't see it that way. I see this being a blowout. I've landed on I think Tennessee blows Pittsburgh out the building. And part of that is, and it will come back where like Pitt will score some points late because Tennessee's defense will be on the field a lot because the offense is going to score. I don't think Pitt is going to play well from behind this year. You look at last year where their passing offense was number 8 in the country last year in yards per game through the air. They were throwing the ball like 8.7 yards per attempt, 44 touchdowns, 8 picks. Like this was a high-octane Kenny Pickett, Mark Whipple special where they were not trying to run the ball. Pat Narduzzi wants to run the ball, right? You look at what they did last week. Something I noticed. You were talking about how it was close. One of the difference, though, they still ran the ball. Pitt ran the ball a bunch in this game. They ran the ball 38 times for 76 yards, averaging 2 yards a carry. 3 TDs total on the ground for Pitt. They tried, and they didn't run the ball. They're going to try and run the ball against Tennessee. They're going to try and play a game of possession and try and beat Tennessee in a very different way than the way in which they upset the Vols in Knoxville last year. There's no Joe Milton starting the game like was the case last year. I think Tennessee's better. I think they're deeper. I think this offense is just going to torch the Panthers early, and Narduzzi's just going to be too stubborn to throw, and to just try and match what Tennessee's going to bring to the table. I mean, Brew McCoy being in there for Javonte Baden is big. I think Jalen Hyatt showed a lot of stuff last week. Cedric Tillman's going to be targeted a bunch. We'll see how Gerald Mincey does at the left tackle spot. Him and Jeremiah Crawford will probably both get looks there, but my gut tells me Tennessee 45, Pitt 24. That's what my gut tells me. I think Pitt maybe scores a little bit more late, but I don't think this game's ever in doubt after the first quarter.
See, I feel like we don't agree. I almost want to pick Pitt to cover, because I feel like we don't agree on how this game's going to go, so it doesn't do it justice for us to have the exact same pick here. But I don't know. See, that's the thing about playing behind. It's like Tennessee has to have a good enough defense to make people play behind. And do we know that Tennessee's defense is that improved this year?
It's better. I mean, Barron and Young are legit on the edge now. They have more options at defensive tackle. Joshua Josephs is a true freshman that you're going to know about very early on. Like, he played a lot, and he was one of the highest graded PFF players for Tennessee on this defense last week. He's a player. So just keep that in mind. Jonathan Josephs for Tennessee. He's going to be a good player. It's going to be fun. I'm very excited to see what Joseph does for Tennessee. Pierce, it was going to be the question of, like, was it going to be Josephs or was it going to be Pierce for Tennessee? And it's going to be Joseph. So he's going to be – Tennessee is – the offensive linemen are coming in, and guys like Joshua Josephs and company are going to be quite good for the ball. So I'm not as concerned. Kamal Haddon –
but I'm talking about the defense, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
This was the 99th ranked scoring defense in the country last season, though. So they do have a long way to go. You don't necessarily have to have a good offense to be able to score on a mediocre defense, you know? So it's kind of like what we saw with the great Wake Forest Army game, right? If neither team is playing defense, okay, you can go down and score every 2 minutes. We're just going to be over here taking 8 minutes to score, and then you can come back and score in 2 minutes again. We're just going to take 8 more minutes to score. So I don't think Pittsburgh is going to have – I definitely don't think they have as good of an offense as Tennessee, but since they're not having to play Tennessee's offense, they're playing Tennessee's defense, I think I could see this game going back and forth. Just that, and that's why I feel like it's going to go like the West Virginia game. And I feel like it could be the exact same score too, but Tennessee comes out on top 38-31. That's kind of how I see this game going.
We'll see. I'm going to stick to my guns and say the Vols. Like, I'm much more concerned about the Florida game in week 4 than I am the Pitt game at this point.
Chase Thomas, not concerned of the Pitt Panthers. Bulletin board material. Put it up right now.
I don't want to eat these words on Sunday. Let's hope that's not the case.
Keeping it moving. FS1 on this one. We got Houston at Texas Tech at 4:00. Texas Tech is a 3-point favorite at home. They're without Tyler Shuck. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, that is Tyler
the
Shuck.
Quarterback for 2 weeks, and I think that's a bit. I'm surprised the line hasn't moved since that news. I think Houston. I don't know if this is an overreaction to the UTSA having to go to overtime with them, or if it's just, you know, a Group of 5 team going on the road to a Power 5 school. I was a little surprised to see Texas Tech favored in this one, but I think UTSA could be one of the best teams Houston plays all season, and so I think without Tyler Shuck, I like Houston to go on the road and get the win at Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think Houston doesn't have these 2 back-to-back crazy ones where they're fighting for their lives. And I also think UTSA is a better team right now than Texas Tech. I think
it's very possible, yeah.
Like, UTSA might just have a top 10 offense in college football this year. Like, UTSA is greatly coached. They're a pain in the butt Group of 5 school, so I don't think there's any shame in falling behind the way they did and having to struggle and fight back. But we'll say a weird way to start the season if you're Houston with UTSA and Texas Tech right out the gate here. But Clayton Thune, I think this will be a much more manageable game, and I actually think they'll be in control. And losing Shuck is a blow for the Red Raiders. I don't see a way in which a team that I think is very much in the conversation to go 12-0 this year falls in Lubbock. And game number 2 for Joey McGuire and his Red Raiders. So give me Houston to win and cover.
Oh, man. Haven't disagreed so far, man. What's going on here?
What if I just did this whole thing where I always agreed with you for the rest of the year just to make sure that I win?
Just sat on the lead?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. You would do something. I wouldn't put that past you. Okay, keeping it moving at 4 o'clock. On the Big Ten Network, we got Iowa State at Iowa. And Iowa's a 3.5-point home favorite in this one, even though they might not score 3.5 points in this game. What are your thoughts on this game?
This is funny to me because it's like nothing about this game should point you in the direction of Iowa, right? Like we spent a lot of time on the Sunday show talking about how repulsive this Iowa team is right now, right? Iowa just does this every year. Last year, look at what should have happened last year. I mean, do you remember, like, there was so much hype. Breece Hall, Brock Purdy. This was Iowa State's year, all this talent, the last ride for this group. They were, a lot of folks were like, they could win the Big 12. Like, we're excited to see how they compete with Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley. That game was just dumb. That was just such a dumb game where Purdy implodes, pick city. Did he get pulled or injured in that one? I know he didn't play the whole game. I forgot what the circumstance was there. But for whatever reason, Iowa and Iowa State, Iowa just has their number. Whatever the Cyclones are before they play Iowa is not who they are when they play the Hawkeyes. And I'm going to hate it. I'm going to hate the Hawkeyes are 2-0. I'm going to hate that they find a way to win this game and to not only beat and cover against the Iowa State Cyclones. This is just bad, and I'm annoyed at this whole situation. The 126th ranked offense is going to win this football game, and they're going to win it handily. The defense is legit. Jack Campbell is an absolute menace. But yeah, I don't see, until Iowa State gets over the mental hurdle of beating Iowa, I can't do it. I think Iowa wins here and they cover, and it's going to be as ugly as ever. I'm gonna hate this. Matt Green.
Yeah, man, I hate to do it, but we're gonna agree on this one as well. 6 straight wins for Iowa in this series, and in those 6 straight, Iowa has won the turnover battle 10-1, and in the last 5, they haven't turned the ball over in the last 5 matchups in this series. So it feels like Iowa just is not going to beat themselves. And kind of like you were alluding to, last year felt like the year for Iowa State. So it's like if that team's not going to beat Iowa, they're probably not going to get it done. So I gotta, and they're also at home, so I'm going to go with the Hawkeyes as well.
Matt Green, trivia time. What is one thing that the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Georgia Bulldogs defense shares through week 1 of the college football season?
They both allowed 3 points.
That's correct. People are saying the Georgia of the North. The Georgia of the North. They just need to hire their Todd Monken. That's all they need.
Just trying to make this happen. No one's calling Iowa the Georgia of the North.
The sleeping Georgia Bulldogs.
Wisconsin is way closer than Iowa, I would say.
I don't know.
And Wisconsin, the number 1 ranked defense last year.
It's true. Jim Leonard
over the full season, and they just, Georgia may have had their offensive woes. They've never been as bad. Their worst years haven't been as bad as Iowa is, just consistently year in and year out.
I don't know. That Brian Schottenheimer year was pretty bad. The Grayson Lambert year was not.
Well, I'll say under Kirby.
Where are we going next, Matt Green?
Keeping it moving. What I think is probably the most interesting game, Pitt, Tennessee is up there for one of the ones I'm most interested to watch. But probably the one I'm most interested to watch all weekend is Kentucky at Florida. Florida is a 4.5-point home favorite, and I really would like to see what this spread was like 5 days ago. Like I have a feeling Kentucky was probably favored if we looked at this game last week. But I don't know. There's something about getting that first win over Utah at home. I just think that's massive for this program. I think it just increases the confidence level of the entire program. And we know about the suspension of Chris Rodriguez. Interestingly enough, the team that has won the rushing battle in this matchup the last 3 seasons has lost each time. So not what you might think with 2 teams that like to run the football. But not including 2018, of course, because Kentucky ran all over Florida with Benny Snell and that team that came down to the Swamp and won. Maybe it was the Swamp, but regardless, Florida's a 4.5-point favorite. I definitely, when we were going through our preseason win-loss, I was counting this as a loss for Florida, but now after that win over Utah, I'm feeling a little differently because I feel like Cam Rising is a better version of Will Levis, personally. Like maybe he's a better pro prospect and maybe he has the tools, but at the college level, I've been more impressed by Cam Rising's passing and playmaking ability, and that's essentially what Will Levis is supposed to be. So putting the way Florida played Rising last week, he really didn't look all that great against this Florida defense. And so I think Florida's gonna get it done and go to 2-0. I would not have thought that. I would say that 2 weeks ago.
Well, now you've got me a little shook, Matt Green, because Kentucky ran the ball 26 times for 50 yards against the Redhawks last week, averaging less than 2 yards a carry going into this one. And Florida, as we know, ran all over the Utah Utes, where they averaged 7.26 yards per carry, 39 carries, 283 yards total. I mean, that puts them in the top 10 in yards on the ground per.
You would think it would be a good thing to win the rushing battle. It has not been the last 3.
You've got me shook a little bit. Do you know who actually leads yards per carry right now in college football?
Is it the Vanderbilt quarterback?
It is not. I'm just talking about university as a whole. Who's number 1 right now in yards per attempt on the ground?
For who?
Just all FBS. Who's number 1? Which university?
Florida.
Florida's not. Good guess. Vanderbilt was also a good guess. They're number 6 right now. No, it is the Kansas Jayhawks, who are averaging 9.9 yards per attempt on the ground, Matt Green.
Who knew?
Lance Leipold, man. Next Nebraska coach, doing work down there in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm going back and forth.
Stay focused here, sir.
Well, it's just part of, like, the running aspect of this has me wondering, like, what if this is an implosion game? Where Richardson flashed a lot on the ground. He flashed a lot with his improv. And it was interesting to hear Dan Patrick on his show this week compare Anthony Richardson to Ben Roethlisberger, was a name he had heard about him in NFL circles. And I had not considered that. But when you watch him, like, you don't like the Cam Newton comparisons. It drives you. It grinds your gears, Matt Green.
Yeah, it's like comparing. This guy's 6'8", 6'9" with guard skills. He's gonna be the next LeBron. It's like, no, let's just pump the brakes. There's a lot more comparisons we could make before LeBron or Cam Newton. I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head. He made KJ Jefferson. He's like a KJ Jefferson type. We don't have to jump all the way to Cam Newton.
Yeah. Well, Ben Roethlisberger. Interesting one where he's just big. Like Richardson, just kind of and I think a lot of it stems from he's really hard to bring down, and that was something when you watch the Utah game, he is going to be a pain in the butt to bring down by defenders.
But he's just so athletic.
Yeah.
I feel like
he's hard to tackle.
Roethlisberger may have been a slightly athletic athlete in college, but we never saw that at all in the NFL. I think Richardson is just a vastly superior athlete.
For sure. But I think it was just more about, like, the arm was a question mark, where he moved around a lot in the pocket. He ran a little bit. He was also impossible to sack. Like, it was that kind of thing where they weren't sure how it was going to translate. Great arm, talent. Like, he could throw the ball a mile, but was it going to translate into a modern NFL offense and that sort of thing? And Richardson flashed. They ran all over Utah. I think Kentucky's got a better defense. I think Kentucky is going to keep this a lot closer. I don't think you're going to have those same mistakes inside the goal line, the 1 yard line out. Like, they're going to run the ball in. Like, I think Kentucky will figure out a way. They're not going to make those same kind of mistakes and get cute there. I think this will be close, but I feel like I'm going to hate myself for picking Florida here to go 2-0 with a new coach with Billy Napier, and that we might see what happened with Florida State last week with LSU, right? Where Brian Kelly, I think people are now way too over the top of like, oh, he's Chad Morris of LSU, or this is not going to go well. Like, he goes at it back and forth with the reporter this week over being late to the press conference. Like, a lot of weird stuff going on in Baton Rouge right now. But let's breathe for a second. It's week 1. Like, let's breathe on this one. But it's hard. These coaches in year 1, you go up and down. You win some crazy ones and you lose some really dumb ones. And I just wonder if with Billy Napier, you got the Utah win, great. But it's asking a lot when you're at this much turnover, new staff, new everything, that you win 2 games back-to-back, with them both being at home, which is important, against 2 really good ranked teams, two teams that could be double-digit win season teams this year. I think that's asking a lot. I'm gonna do this, Matt Green. You went Florida, right, and took the points?
I did.
I'm gonna go Kentucky here. I think Kentucky wins this game outright. I don't think Florida does it back-to-back weeks. I don't think they're there consistency-wise. I think they're gonna drop it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think the Chris Rodriguez suspension was what kind of tipped the scales for me. I do think this is going to be a really close game, and I'm surprised I'm picking Florida with how I kind of felt about them coming into the season. And we don't want to overreact to one game. Like Anthony Richardson, he still does need to improve as a passer, and maybe Kentucky, does some things to force him to beat them with his arm. I think that's how you're going to have to play them. But moving forward, we got Arizona State at Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State's an 11-point favorite at home, which is a big number. I have no idea what to expect from this Arizona State team this year. Like, Emory Jones, is he bad, or is he just not good enough to play in the SEC? Like, maybe he is a good player. Like, we saw them dismantle a cupcake last week. Like, I'm not sure what we really learned from that game. So Oklahoma State, while they did just get absolutely torched defensively by Central Michigan, we did see Spencer Sanders throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, that's also a positive. So I'm not crazy about this Arizona State team. And so I think 11 points seems a little high to me, but I'm gonna go with Oklahoma State to get it done at home. Give me the Oklahoma State and the points.
That defense looks bad. I think the Oklahoma State defense is going to be bad. That being said, they should still beat Emory Jones in this group. Like, they did not pass the ball a bunch. They ran the ball really well last week, and I think that will probably be their identity with Emory and company, is they'll be able to run the ball pretty well out there in Tempe. But I think you're going to have to score a lot. I think this is going to be a shootout, and he's going to have to pass. And I don't see that working out all that well. That being said, I think this is going to be one of those dumb games we're seeing on the score line as we're watching something else, where it's like, Arizona State scored again. Oklahoma State did something, like Oklahoma State gave up a touchdown again within 35 seconds on something dumb, and now it's 45-42 with 8 minutes to go in the fourth. Like, I could see that being the way this game goes. That being said, I think Oklahoma State still survives, and God bless the Oklahoma State Cowboys going back to their roots. The Oklahoma State Cowboys that you and I grew up with. No defense, all gas, no breaks, always in every game because you can't count on the defense. Give Derek Mason a lifetime contract there. This is the Oklahoma State that I want. It's the Oklahoma State that I need. Give me the Cowboys to win, but not cover.
All right. Win, not cover. Let me write that down. And then our 7:30 ABC game. This is what I was kind of talking about. Kind of a weak slate this week. USC at Stanford. Stanford's a 9-point home dog here.
Are you going to do it? Is this where Zeus locks in?
I just couldn't do it, man. Like, Stanford was just awful last year. Like, obviously it's a new year, but I couldn't do it. I gotta go with USC to get, like, they lost 7 straight games in the season. Obviously they did beat USC. Somehow they beat Oregon as well, but they did beat USC even though they were that terrible. But this is a new look USC this year. Like, Caleb Williams alone is enough for the 9-point line. So yeah, give me USC to go on the road at Stanford and win and cover.
Interesting. Tanner McKee, first round potential quarterback. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on this one for NFL scouts to watch how Caleb Williams and Tanner McKee go at it.
Next Davis Mills.
Hey, Davis Mills is a player, man, and he was the #1 recruit in his class. Like, even though David Shaw's not recruiting the same way he did, and Stanford's been just really suffering on that front, on the recruiting front in the last few years. Like, he's still getting the quarterbacks. He's still getting the quarterbacks in the building. With Tanner McKee being another high-profile older kid. That being said, I don't see Stanford stopping Lincoln Riley in this group. I think this is a recipe for disaster. That being said, if you seem to recall, the Ducks feeling all kind of mighty, high and mighty on that old nasty broadcast feed that we watched Stanford and Oregon in last year. In Stanford, if you remember, man, the Cardinal took down the Ducks, who were just feeling all great.
What year is this?
Last year. They beat the Ducks last year.
Oh, you're talking last year. Okay.
But if you remember the video feed, like ABC, there was something weird about the TV presentation. Do you remember that it looked super old? It wasn't HD. It was just super.
That's where I wasn't following you. I don't remember that.
Yeah, just go back, like, after this. Go look at Oregon Stanford highlights 2021, and then look at the film, and you're like, wait, what? What year was this shot at? But that was how it was on the broadcast feed. Tanner McKee and the Cardinal, they survive late and knock off Oregon, who were riding a high after beating Ohio State. Like, we were like, oh, Oregon's going to be in the college football playoff. Like, they're college football playoff, one of the 4. Stanford ruined it for everybody.
Not so fast, my friend.
They love nothing more. They're just the spoilers. We were wondering if they could be the Notre Dame of the West. Could they be the Notre Dame of the West? They're not. They're a bad
What does that mean exactly?
Like, just competence, strong defense, solid quarterback play, solid academics. Like, go 9-3, 8-4 most years. May have a great year. 10-2.
Notre Dame's been in the playoff.
Yeah,
twice.
You know what we need to do?
I don't think
I figured out what we need
to
to
that
do.
level.
Here's what we do. We combine them. And we send the quarterbacks who keep going to Stanford, the 5-star kids, we send them to Notre Dame. Like, we just get rid of Tyler Buckner, and Tanner McKee is the quarterback for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a playoff team, like, with Tanner McKee in that group. Like, that is a game changer for them. You put Davis Mills in for Ian Book, the dogs go down, my friend. You talk about
Andrew Luck on that Manti Te'o team? Now we're talking.
That's what I'm saying.
They only lose to Alabama by 3 touchdowns.
Hey, I don't know. That'd be cool, but maybe that's the key. We just solved the Stanford Notre Dame problem in the college football playoff. All that being said, I think USC gives up a lot of points in this one. I still think the defense was a little. People are talking themselves a little bit too much, and I'm still not a big Alex Grinch guy on that side of things. So give me Stanford the points, but USC to win. So I think Stanford covers.
All right. Put it on the board. This one, we decided to put a little dumpster dive here on the pick. Boston College at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, a 3-point home dog. And I don't want to butcher the stat that I heard on Cover 3, which they also got from some Twitter user. So whoever said it, great call on the stat. But it was something along the lines of teams that were a road favorite in week 1 but lost, and then were a home favorite the following week, were 14-1 against the spread. So over however many last 16 times that's happened, I guess. I don't know how many years that goes back. But So take that stat for what it's worth. That's the position that Virginia Tech's in right now. Lost last week on the road at Old Dominion. I just think Old Dominion has to be a significantly worse. As much as we disrespect Rutgers, Old Dominion is significantly worse than Rutgers, right? Like we can agree. At least they should be. So in my mind, Boston College losing to Rutgers is not as bad as Virginia Tech losing to Old Dominion. And Boston College, their offense still, Dracovic and Zay Flowers still made some plays. So I just think they have more playmakers. And this Virginia Tech team just looks really bad. So I'm going to go Boston College to go on the road, Lane Stadium, and win outright.
Back-to-back losses for Brett Pry in his opener. We're going to disagree, my friend. I think Virginia Tech not only wins, I think they cover. I think BC might be bad. And VT, though. VT, like you got Old Dominion, just throw that out the window. Because BC, or the Hokies in 1995, Matt Green, they lose to Boston College 20-14. They don't lose another Big East game that particular year, sir.
So where we go? What is this? What's the relevance here?
We're just saying, you lose that Old Dominion game early. Like, that was dumb. And then the way Brent Pry talked about BC was just like, oh, they're fine. Like, he said, quote, they don't do a lot defensively, but they do it well. I think they're a well-coached bunch. They're a couple years into this thing, and they've got a good handle on what they're doing defensively. That's the most, like, they're fine. They're solid. They're well-coached. They're really scrappy, the Boston College Eagles. They're a scrappy bunch. Jeff Hafley does a good job. Good coach. And Boston College. It's a tough job. Lose their coordinator.
I do like Jeff Hafley.
Yeah, he's good. I think this offense might stink. I think Phil Dracovic, this might just be a problem. Zay Flowers coming back might have been a mistake in Boston College. I think they bounce back. Grant Wells, my guy from Marshall, bounces back here as QB1 in Hokie territory. So give me the Hokies to win and cover, my friend.
All right, put it on the board. And then our nightcap to kick it things off, we got future Big 12 rivalry here. Baylor going to Provo to play BYU. BYU is a 3.5-point home favorite in this one. And it gets rowdy in BYU. But I like this Baylor team. I like what Shapen does. Blake Shapen, when he came on last year, I like the way this offense looks. And so this early in the year, I still don't know what either of these teams are necessarily, but I'm going to take Baylor to go on. I'm taking a lot of road teams. I'm nervous about that. Could be a bad week for me. We'll see. But I'm going to take Baylor to go on the road, get it done.
It's interesting. Baylor is, I think, they're the quiet elite team at everything. So right now, they're 10th in yards per attempt through the air to this point. They are 18th in the country in rushing offense, yards per carry on the ground. You just go through it. On defense, I have that in front of me. They're also a top 10 scoring defense. Like, they just look great all around. Like, Jeff Grimes, also very familiar with BYU. Remember, he came over from BYU to be the new OC last year for Dave Aranda after he moved on from Larry Fedora. Remember, Jeff Grimes was the OC with Kalani Sitake for the Zach Wilson years in BYU. He knows the program. He knows what Kalani is going to end up doing. I'm going to join you. I think Baylor actually wins comfortably here. I think Baylor goes on the road in a hostile territory. It's going to be a fun game late, but give me the Bears to win and cover on the road.
All right, put it on the board. And then our last one, we got Mississippi State going out west for their first ever matchup with the Arizona Wildcats. And the Wildcats are a 10.5-point, you guessed it, sir, home dog. And this is our home dog of the week. I actually low-key like Mississippi State this year. I think they could be one of those chaos teams like you've talked about. They're gonna ruin some team seasons. They're gonna get multiple big wins. But there's something weird about Mike Leach teams, about bringing it every week, traveling all the way to the West Coast, 11 o'clock time. Like, it's just a weird game for an SEC team to play. I ultimately think Mississippi State's going to come out of here with a win. But I'm going to take, and we know how I feel about year 2 coaches, right? We got Jed Fish in year 2. Mm-hmm. So I think we see some improvement from Arizona. But also, this is just a weird game. And so I think Mississippi State gets the win. But I'm going to take Arizona to cover.
So you're going Mississippi State to win, though?
Yeah.
Okay. Jaden DeLaura looked really good. 4 TDs, 1 pick last week. I think he was the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week. I think there's a path. You ready for this? Max Brown, former USC and Pitt quarterback, said last week, quote, Jaden DeLaura played like the best quarterback in the Pac-12 yesterday. Jaden DeLaura versus Will Rogers this week. And Jacob Cowing, who might also be the best receiver in the Pac-12 this season. Arizona still can't run the ball. Jed Fish has got something cooking in Tucson. Arizona State falling apart, going down the tube. The Wildcats rising in a very wide open Pac-12. Like, I'm not saying they're going to win the Pac-12 this year. I am saying they're recruiting really well. I don't know if you've looked at this past recruiting class for Arizona. One of the best. I think it might have been the best they've ever had, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that right?
Jed Fish putting on a clinic, man. Teddy Bruschi in the NIL club down there in Wildcat country doing a little bit of work. I think that I'm buying this Arizona Wildcat stock. I'm buying where they're going as a program. I'm buying that Mike Leach, who loves to lose one of these dumb games early on in the season where he can't help it. Memphis and Arizona is just too much. And Arizona on the road, traveling across the country for this one, playing in that. Like, this is going to be a quarterback clinic. I can't wait to watch Will Rogers versus Jaden DeLaura. I think this will be close. But because they're dogs, we're agreeing, Matt Green. But the difference is I am giving the Cats the love outright. I think they get their first signature win in the Jed Fish era. They beat an SEC team. Mississippi State goes down in a barn burner in Tucson. While the SEC sleeps, the Pac-12 eats, my friend.
That's a great line right there. I didn't have the courage to pick the upset. I feel like this is going to be a close one, but I think Mississippi State pulls it out. Closer than the experts think for another Lee Corso one-liner in there. He does this, man. Like, they got, I don't know. You look at this, and I'm pulling up last year, where they barely get away from Louisiana Tech, 35-34. They lose on the road at Memphis. The week before, they stun NC State. Remember, they beat a really good NC State team, 24-10. They follow that up with immediately falling on their face at Memphis. This is what I'm saying. Like, I feel it in my bones, Matt Green, that they're going to do this dumb thing and lose this game on the road in Arizona. It's just my gut, man. I will say they haven't had a good win yet. Mm-hmm. So maybe Memphis was kind of a good win. I don't know if how you classify it. So then now's the letdown following the big revenge win over Memphis last week. So I don't know, but I think we feel the same way about, I don't know, just something about it doesn't feel like Mississippi State's going to necessarily show up completely for that West Coast game.
We'll see. We shall see, but I don't know.
1 a.m. local start for your body on Mississippi time. I don't know.
That's true.
That could be weird.
Give me the Cats. We should run through just as we wrap up here a couple of the other interesting games. Louisville at UCF on Friday night should be interesting at 7:30. I'll be interested to see how that one goes after Louisville just gets bounced in really embarrassing fashion on the road at Syracuse, who just might be good, by the way. Like, Syracuse just might be a good football program this year, and Dino might have saved his job, and they could be going bowling. We got Wake Forest at Vanderbilt and Mizzou at Kansas State. I think it's going to be super fascinating because Mizzou looked pretty solid offensively. Luther Burden looks like he's going to be a player in that Mizzou offense. So I'm curious to see how that goes against Kansas State, who I have to pick in the Big 12 title game. All eyes will be on FS1 for Duke Northwestern for the Battle of the Brains for that one. So who stands tall there? I will be at the edge of my seat looking at that. I think Marshall Notre Dame could get feisty. Like, it's on Peacock. No one will be watching it, but Marshall's a really good football program. Charles Huff's done a really good job there, and I would not be surprised if Marshall covers whatever that spread is off the top of my head.
Also, am I seeing this correctly that North Carolina is playing at Georgia State this week?
They are.
They are opening the season at App State and at Georgia State. Who is this program? Like, what conference are they in? I'm just scrolling down this Center Park Stadium, formerly Turner Field. I'll always call it Turner Field, but yeah, I feel like Georgia State, that feels sneaky, honestly. Like, Georgia State they tend to give these Power 5 schools a run for their money.
Another one that's sneaky that I would watch out for is, does Michigan cover one of the most preposterous lines we've ever seen in college football? Hawaii at home late. I think that line was 50, right? Hawaii, Michigan, last I checked.
Oh, is that right? Where? What time is? I'm trying to find that game
8 o'clock.
Here.
Michigan, Hawaii. I want to say the line was 50.
Wow, do we feel like Michigan can score 50 points?
JJ McCarthy starting this one.
This is showing at minus 51 right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, especially with a new game with McCarthy. Like, if they cover this spread, I think McCarthy might be the guy. Like, I don't know. I don't want to overreact to a win over Hawaii, but I don't know. I'm really interested to see how this turns out. Like, what happens if McCarthy just looks bad for the first quarter? Like, what if we go to a 0-0, into the first, it's 0-0? Like, you said this was McCarthy's full game, and now it's like, oh, maybe we need to get McNamara in there. I don't know. I'm still skeptical of this just declaring two different guys the starters weeks 1 and 2. It's just, I'm fascinated to see how it works out.
One other one to keep an eye on, 3:30. App State going to College Station. I think that might be a sneaky one. App State's offense is legit. Chase Bryce going in there for his 19th year. Like, he's the better quarterback between him and Haynes King. Haynes King did not look great last week. What if that one's a back and forth? Like, they're going to put some points. Like, I think A&M's going to have to get this offense figured out a little bit, because A&M, their defense is legit, top 5 in the country, but I still think App State's going to score. I think they're going to put a lot of pressure. I don't know if they're going to win. I would not pick them to win. But if that one's close going in the fourth and it's like 24-27 App State A&M, I would not be the least bit surprised. I would keep an eye on that one, folks. If you're not all locked in on Pitt, Tennessee, or during commercials you want to flip over, I might consider flipping over to A&M and App State, because I think that one might be a little crazy towards the end. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good call. That one got kind of overlooked on the slate this week, but I don't know. We'll see. I told you last week the App State Giant Killer reputation was a little overrated, but part of it feels like it's on A&M. Like, we want to see what A&M's got, because App State is not your typical cupcake. They're at least a more respectable G5 school. But I think most people around that time will be watching Georgia Samford, that compelling game that I think the line, ESPN doesn't even list a line on here right now, but I think I heard the line was up to 52.
Oh, is it higher than Michigan? That makes sense.
I think so. So yeah, that should be a bloodbath. But yeah, App State A&M, I think that's a solid sneaky game.
Okay, I like it. Matt Green, that's it for this week. How many did we agree and disagree on? What's the difference? Can you make up significant ground?
This I'll have to go through and look at. I think we agreed on like the first 5 or 6. So we got some solid disagreements in there, especially because you have 2 or 3 in there where you're taking one team to win and the other to cover. So we got enough disagreements to make things interesting.
Okay.
Assuming you're not just protecting the lead, sitting on the ball for the final 10 weeks of the season.
I'm telling you, it could be a good bit. I could do it. I would consider that if it was like a money thing. If it was a money pool or something like that, I would absolutely do that. If it was like a guaranteed money thing, yeah, just dominate week 1 and.
I think we'd have to like submit our picks ahead of time to not know which the other person was picking. But yeah, likely we don't have to worry about your lack of integrity when it comes to making picks.
Exactly. Matt Green, you can find me on Twitter at Matt_W_Green. Follow myself at Chase_Thomas. More Chase Thomas podcast to follow here. Katie Sharp of Rabbit New Blues and just a long time New York Yankees writer and podcaster, Talkin Yanks, all that good stuff. And then also Justin Rowan of the Chase Down, talking all things Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs. Still coming up here on the Thursday edition here on the Chase Thomas podcast. As always, leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you enjoy this very program, subscribe on your preferred podcast player so you never miss an episode. This is a daily show, so there's new episodes in your podcast player feed each and every day. And check us out on youtube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast. Like and subscribe, those thumbs up help, and all that good stuff. For that guy down there in Dacula, Georgia, Matt Green, for myself up here in Knoxville, Tennessee, that is all we've got here on this edition of The Full Ride. We'll be back Sunday night for our recap show. Matt Green, I will talk to you then.
Yes, sir.